What is up, you guys? I'm Charmix. Today I'm going to be reacting to film theory Ant-Man's Giant Problem, Marvel's Ant-Man by the film theorist. Now, I actually really like Marvel's Ant-Man. I think it's a really cool concept. However, I have heard, I don't think this was about particularly Ant-Man, but like something else, where if you're too tall or whatever, the amount of gravity pulling down on you, it would affect your body negatively or whatever, and Ant-Man can get freaking huge, so I assume the gravity pushing down on him would end up crushing him or something. It's something like that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, with that being said, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to the Film Theorist, and without any further ado, let's begin.
Big ego? I'll show you a big ego. I kind of walked right into that one, didn't I? Yeah,
it's a trap!
Truck. Damn, what a waste of tacos.
It was a trap the whole time.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that puts out new episodes only slightly more often than Marvel puts out new superhero movies. I mean...
Kind of accurate. I mean, how many did they put out this year so far? Like, my goodness, it must be like 4 or something. Somewhere around there. It's been a lot. There's been a lot of superhero movies this year.
Seriously, it feels like Infinity War just happened, but it's already time to put that one behind us to focus on a story with some smaller stakes. You might have noticed that Scott Lang, aka the Ant-Man, was absent from the latest Avengers movie. And that's not a case of him being tucked away in some microscopic...
I was gonna say, maybe he was there the whole time, but we just couldn't see him because he's so small.
Big hiding place, believe me. I checked every promotional poster out there, and I found some weird things by doing that too, like this. And this. Ooh, there's a hidden Mickey. That Illuminati symbol wasn't all that surprising considering it's Disney, but yeah, no Ant-Man as far as the eye could see. All we hear in the movie is that he and Hawkeye, quote, took a deal since being a hero was too hard on their families. Aw, being a superhero is hard, is it? Boo-hoo. Now half the universe is dead. Not like that's gonna be a lot easier on the fam. Anyway, in case you've forgotten, Ant-Man has the ability to shrink down to ant size using what's known as Pym particles. The marvelous, get it? Miracle matter that can mess with the size, mass, and density of any substance. We most often see—
Yeah, I like Ant-Man, especially because of that. Like, you can shrink and grow so fast. And in, like, the original one or whatever, he went smaller than a friggin' ant. He went to, like, you know, atom-sized or whatever. That was freaking crazy.
See him using the power of the Pym particle to shrink himself down to the size of an ant. However, one of the most memorable Ant-Man scenes from the MCU has to be him doing the reverse in Captain America,
awesome.
The Korean ripoff version of Captain America. In Captain America Civil War, he blows himself up to massive size, becoming the most powerful hero on the battlefield, throwing trucks around, taking missiles to the chest, basically turning unstoppable until
I wonder if he could take on the Hulk at that size.
Spider-Man decides to take a page from Luke Skywalker's playbook and ties up his legs to trip him like an at that forgot how to walk.
You know that part?
What do you mean, an ant?
They're on the snow planet? With the walking thingy!
I'm calling BS here, by the way. It is the most unbelievable part of the movie. Perhaps the most unbelievable part of the MCU. Peter Parker clearly would know what all of those things are named. Anyway, it makes you wonder, why doesn't Ant-Man use this power more often?
Do it all the time.
Really? Because this is the first time we've ever seen you do it in the movie.
I know, exactly.
In a lab.
Alright, so at first this might seem like a lazy cop-out by the writers, but when you look at the real-life science, it actually makes sense. Being big doesn't just take a fictional subatomic Pym particle. A power like this is gonna have some weird side effects to Scott's body. As it turns out, there's an extreme cost for being big, and that's the lesson for today.
Here we go. Remember at the beginning I said it has something to do with like the amount of gravity on the body? Something like that. I've heard, and it wasn't about specifically this, but it was about something else that if you were like, it might have been a Vsauce video, I don't remember, but it was something that if you were like really big, that it would end up like crushing you or something like that because of the gravity forcing it down to you. I forget the science or whatever, but supposedly it can do a lot of damage to you.
Being bigger isn't always being better. And considering it's a power he's gonna be using again in his second movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, learning the oddities that come with being big is gonna be essential so that he doesn't end every fight hangry.
Does anyone have any orange slices?
Have you ever stopped to wonder why an elephant is less agile than a mouse? I mean, sure, we all intuitively know that big things tend to move slower, but why? You might say that it's because they weigh more, and yeah, that's certainly true, but consider this. If you took a mouse and blew it up, wouldn't it retain the same abilities that allow it to scamper around? Or by the same token, if you take Scott Lang, an athletic superhero, and do the equivalent of dropping him into Photoshop to stretch the corner of his transform box, wouldn't he just have the same abilities but bigger and stronger than before? He's still the same proportions after all. I mean, sure, he may be gaining more mass, but at the same time, his muscles are also growing and gaining strength, including all of those fast twitch muscle
So you'd think that, but that's supposedly not how it works.
fibers that humans use when they sprint. So why is it so much harder for Mega Scott to perform basic actions when he's big in these fight scenes? Well, believe it or not, but the answer is actually a universal law of mathematics that applies to all matter in the universe. Man! Between this and the last Ant-Man theory about how he would be able to create black holes, Ant-Man seems to be the key to unlocking the secrets of existence. Maybe that's why he's not in Infinity War. He's too OP. This secret
Yeah, he's got better things to do.
universal law is known as the square cube law, dating all the way back to Galileo in 1638. Yeah, the same Galileo who discovered Saturn's rings, the moons of Jupiter, and taught the world that planets orbit around the sun. Meanwhile, here I am rewatching Civil War's airport scene covered in Cheeto dust. Galileo, making the rest of the world feel like a slacker since 1640. Anyway, teaching people that they weren't the center of the universe didn't make him very popular with the Roman Inquisition, or Twitter, quite frankly, resulting in him getting put under house arrest. And since he didn't have access to Candy Crush or Cutthroat Kitchen reruns, it gave him a whole lot of time to do math. Math that led to yet another discovery that makes us all feel like underachievers. The square cube law, aka exactly what we need to analyze Ant-Man. The easiest way to explain the law is this. Imagine a tesseract that's 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch. It has a surface area of 6 square inches. Because each face has an area of 1 square inch and there are 6 faces. The volume is 1 times 1 times 1, or 1 cubic inch. Great, if only AP Calc exams were this easy. Now suppose that we double each dimension of the tesseract, making it 2 by 2 by 2. Surface area is now 24 square inches, and volume is now 8 cubic inches. Our surface area increased by a factor of 4, but the volume increased by a factor of 8. Now look at this. We doubled the size of the tesseract, right? Meaning that we multiplied everything by 2.
I'm trying to follow along with what's going on here. I'm trying to figure out what this has to do with being big. I mean, yes, the multiplication is all off, or it's, you know, exaggerated a lot. Even though you just did this by 2, everything else was out of proportion.
But the surface area increased by 2 squared, or 4, and the volume increased by 2 cubed, or 8. If we had tripled the size of everything from our 1 by 1 by 1 tesseract, surface area would now be 54 and volume 27. Surface area would have increased by a factor of 9, or 3 squared, and volume by a factor of 27, or 3 cubed. In other words, by increasing the dimension by a given factor.
So wait. So if Ant-Man were to be like double his size, he would be double his size, but the other things inside him would be all like wonky compared to what they were originally.
The surface area will increase by the square of that factor, and the volume will increase by the cube of that factor. That is the square cube law in a nutshell. Congratulations, you made it through all the math for today's episode. Here's a chocolate and an achievement and 1,000 points added to your theorist score. Make sure you keep that one in a safe place. Now then, what's the significance of all those darn tesseracts to Ant-Man and his gigantism? Well, as Ant-Man grows, other properties are going to change as well. Specifically, his mass is going to increase in the same way that his volume does. It'll be the cube of whatever factor he increases by. So if he scales up by 5, his mass is multiplied by 5 cubed, or 125 times. And that's cool and all, but there's a big problem here. Strength only scales with area. When you want to figure out how strong a bone is, you don't look at how long it is or how much volume it has. You only care about how thick it is. You care about its
Thick.
cross-sectional area. The same applies to muscle strength. So at 5 times the size and 125 times the weight, Ant-Man's strength is only gonna multiply by 25. The TLDR of all this, when you—
So if his weight went up by 125 and his strength only went up by 25, so he would actually be 1/5 as strong as he was before? 1/5. So if he was only able to lift 5 pounds doing a bicep curl before, which is really weak, you should be ashamed of yourself, Ant-Man. But if he could only lift 5 pounds before, now he can only lift 1 pound. Oh, wow. So yeah, that would explain that. Even if he's so huge, you know, he would be a lot weaker.
you make something bigger, you're not actually making it stronger by the same amount. The more you scale something up, it becomes relatively less and less strong. For an example of this in nature, just look at deer. White-tailed deer are 150 pounds, while elk are 600 pounds. Just by looking at them, you can tell that the elk's legs are much thicker than the lighter white-tailed deer legs. This is
I like that you gave it the 2 C's. Thick.
Because an elk's bones and muscles need to be much thicker to support the extra weight. But even in spite of all that extra girth, elk are still more likely to break their bones. The long story short here is supporting additional mass is hard. It is biologically very difficult. It requires a lot of extra internal infrastructure in your body. Infrastructure that humans, and Ant-Man specifically, just aren't built for. So let's take one more look at Ant-Man. If we figure out the factor of increase for Ant-Man's size, we can quickly assess how that would affect his mass and strength. Now, in the trailers for the new movie, we hear him bragging about how big he's able to get.
How big did you get?
21 feet. You?
65 feet.
65.
The actor who plays Ant-Man, Paul Rudd, is reportedly 5 foot 10 inches, meaning that Ant-Man has to be able to scale up to a maximum of 11 times his normal body size. Now, remember the square cube law. His mass and volume will increase by a cube of that factor of increase, so his resulting mass is going to increase by a factor of 11 times 11 times 11, or 1,331. Wow. Websites say that Rudd weighs in at about 171 pounds or 78 kilos, so in giant form, he's actually going to be weighing in at a modest 227,601 pounds, or
lightweight.
103,818 kilograms. That's the same as 15 elephants, or about 1 space shuttle. However, the cross-sectional area of his muscles and bones will only increase by the square of 11, or 121. Getting over 100 times stronger might seem like a lot, but it means almost nothing when you consider that he's over 1,000 times heavier than he was.
Wait, so if he's 1,300 times bigger, but he's only 100 times stronger, he's technically, oh my goodness, he would be so weak. He would be so weak. He'd be like 1/10 as strong as before, or more than 1/10. So yeah, even though he could be so huge, he would be so weak and barely able to like stand and all that.
Which explains why Ant-Man, who's normally an agile superhero capable of all kinds of acrobatic feats, is reduced to a slow-moving behemoth in Civil War. Honestly, considering how much additional weight his legs are carrying, it's a wonder that he's even able to be standing at all. Which begs the question, or for all of you on Reddit who are bothered by that idiomatic usage of the phrase, raises the question, could he actually stand? Well, it took a bit of digging, but I found out. Bones are much better at handling compressive forces than shear forces. This is because bones are—
I heard bones are actually stronger than concrete, and I don't know how, because people break them all the time, but I heard that they're somehow stronger than concrete. So I don't know, it should be able to support him. His muscles wouldn't, though.
Made up of columns of collagen and calcium phosphate, like bundles of twigs. And because they run vertically through the bone, they give the bone strength through its length. To show you just how big of a difference all this makes, it takes about 4,000 newtons of force to fracture your femur when you hit it this way, a shear direction, but 50,000 newtons of force when you apply the force this way, a compressive force. Over 10 times more force required. That's according to the E-Study Guide for Physics, by the way. It was a hard number to find. Anyway, at normal human size, it would mean that Scott Lang would need to weigh over 11,240 pounds to break his legs. No big worries there, or for—
11,200. Didn't you say he was 200,000 pounds?
For the rest of humanity, no matter how many cheeseburgers we eat. But then, like Mario Jumpman on his shrooms, we gigantify it. His leg strength scales by 121, meaning that he can now support around 1,360,040 pounds on his legs. And considering he weighs in at just under 200.
Okay, so this makes sense. So yeah, he could stand, but his muscles couldn't do much.
30 pounds when he's in large scale, he is well in the clear. Someone get that man an orange slice. He deserves it. But what's coolest about all of this is that while yes, it explains why he has to be slow and careful in his mega form, it also explains how he's so incredibly powerful in his micro form. Because you see, all of this also works in reverse. If increasing your size...
So he'd be stronger when he's smaller. Does that mean that a lot of, you know, little people are really strong? Because by that logic... Well, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. Because by that logic, little toddlers should be freaking bodybuilders or whatever. So, yeah, no, I don't know.
Increases the ratio of mass to strength, then decreasing your muscle mass should have the opposite effect. More strength relative to your size. According to the Marvel website, Ant-Man can shrink himself down to half an inch. That's him scaling himself down 142 times, which means that his bone and muscle cross-section will be shrunk down by 142 squared, but his volume and mass will be shrunk down by 142 cubed. That means that when Ant-Man is half an inch tall, his strength ratio increases by a factor of 142. That's the equivalent of a 6-foot man feeling like they only weigh 1.4 pounds. Imagine what kind of athletic feats your body would be capable of if you gained that factor of strength. You could lift things that were way bigger than you. In fact, that's exactly what we observe in the animal kingdom. Ants are capable of lifting objects that are hundreds of times their own weight, while elephants are only capable of lifting objects that are around 1/10 of their weight. True, in absolute terms, the elephant might be capable of lifting bigger objects, but proportionally, the ant seems so much stronger. And that's a big part of where Ant-Man's powers come from. For example, he has the...
It seems like that, you know, whoever thought of Ant-Man originally, like the Ant-Man idea, put a lot of thought and science into the creation of Ant-Man, which I never expected that before.
The ability to change size at will while maintaining his momentum, meaning he starts an incredible sprint while small, then blows himself up to deliver a devastating punch. We always hear the phrase that bigger is better, but as we saw in Civil War, being big has its costs. While Ant-Man's gigantic form might be one of the most visually impressive things we see him do in the movies, his real strength lies not in his ability to grow, but his ability to shrink. Scott Lang proves that it's not the size of your superhero, but rather the size of their power ratio.
If you two are finished comparing sizes...
65.
Well, the science proves it at least. Scott still seems really proud of that 65-footer. But hey, that's just a theory.
That was friggin' awesome. And it does, like, back up what I heard before. That, you know, if you're really big, it wouldn't be that good for you. And this backs it up because you would be actually a lot weaker than you are, you know, proportionally to what you are before you were big. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, possibly share it with a friend. If you do, subscribe to join the family. I think Ant-Man has to be one of my favorite superheroes in the terms of non-superpowers, because doesn't he have like some kind of weird power core thing that allows him to go up and down in size? Like, he has technology, right? He's like Iron Man and Batman, because Iron Man and Batman are just normal people with a lot of friggin' money and cool technology. And Ant-Man here, he's got really cool technology, and his technology, I think, is better than Batman's and Iron Man's together, because of how, you know, like, what the frig, you can turn into an ant and then go to the size of a, you know, 60-some feet high? That's friggin' nuts. And I think he has to be one of my favorite, you know, superheroes that doesn't have a superpower, if that makes sense. Anyway, with that being said, if you like this, give it a thumbs up, possibly share a friend. If you don't, subscribe to join the family. Make sure you guys go subscribe to the Film Theorist. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop.